From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 5:30, streaming now.
Now at 5:30, a partial victory for people afraid they were about to lose their land. Ahead, how one county says it will now take its time so that more light can be shined on a major project. With Carnival Cruise Lines now postponing cruises into next year and colleges starting to cancel spring break, we're asking, when will travel return to normal? That's a story a little bit later.
Topping our lineup, regaining trust in public health ahead of COVID vaccine approval. Independent medical experts weigh in on how the FDA plans to make that process transparent. The number of people suffering from COVID symptoms months later continues to grow, and their age may surprise you. The new work doctors are doing to figure out what's going on. And we're seeing some of the lowest airfares we've seen in a decade as we look ahead to holiday travel. The deals may be great, but we look at what you need to consider before you book.
A welcome decision for dozens of people in Shelby County. The Planning Commission is moving forward with a review of its solar power ordinance starting on October 6th. This decision comes after county commissioners on Monday rejected pleas for a moratorium to study the issue. A group opposing what they call solar industrial plant is concerned such a project will impact prime farmland. The group also believes the current solar ordinance is weak and does not protect Shelby County landowners and homeowners. A growing number of colleges are scrapping spring break 2021 as COVID-19 pushes travel delays into next year. Working for you, John Matarese looks at when it might be safe to travel again so you don't waste your money.
Back during the COVID shutdown, way back in March, most of us assumed things would be back to normal by the start of next year. But now it's not looking that way, and Carnival Cruise Lines just confirmed it. It was our pandemic travel dream, the virus disappearing, and travel to Mexico, Canada, and Europe returning by New Year's. But Carnival is again pushing back its return to cruising from U.S. ports from September to November, and now says many of its ships may not sail again till spring. Even European travel guru Rick Steves doesn't want to travel now, saying he doesn't want to have to quarantine when he gets to a new country. Besides, Canada and most European countries are still not welcoming Americans and don't know when they will. So for the Doesn't That Stink file, the travel planning limbo most of us are in right now. Where are we going for spring break? Who knows? And that stinks. Some colleges are already canceling spring break to prevent virus spread. However, travel agents say there's one thing already booking up: beach houses from travelers using all those vouchers from last year's canceled trips. Until a vaccine's available and air and cruise travel feels safe again, many travelers will probably just stick with road trips. As always, don't waste your money. I'm John Matarese, WRTV.
Thank you, John. Those beaches looking pretty nice and inviting. We've had more in the way of some gray skies across central Indiana today after several sunny days. That's because of the tropical system brushing by to our south. Also, still a little bit of that smoke that's in the air from those western wildfires. No rain relief here. Another day where this number hasn't changed. Just 0.04 of an inch of rain in the last 36 days. So now our rainfall deficit for the month, 2.34 inches for us. There are the remnants of Beta. Again, moving across portions of Tennessee mainly here. We're just seeing some of those clouds, so we are not going to get any help with rainfall there. Our temperatures, though, held back a little bit today because of the cloud cover. Right at 70 degrees in Martinsville, at 73 in Greenfield, and Indy coming in at 72. A little warmer for you in Lafayette at 77 degrees. Those temperatures this evening, they will start to cool a little bit, but then hold steady here as we get to 9 and 10 o'clock. We've got temperatures in the middle 60s as we are still going to have quite a few clouds across the area. A southwest breeze also at 5 to 10 miles per hour, and our sun setting here at 7:40. Kids heading to the bus stop tomorrow morning. Another day not going to need the rain gear here. We will have temperatures around 56, so probably not going to need the jacket either. A little more sunshine coming our way for the afternoon, and temperatures in the middle 70s. Lindsay?
Something that's escalated during the pandemic.
The COVID-19 pandemic has unveiled the underlying, challenges as well as the ugliness within our systems of care, as well as in communities in terms of institutional racism, implicit bias, as well as the socioeconomic conditions that lead to some of these outcomes.
The report touches on many different policy-based solutions to improving access to maternity care, including expanding access to Medicaid for new moms from 60 days to 1 year after childbirth, allowing better access to midwives, reimbursement for doula care, and expansion of telehealth services. Still to come in our lineup, regaining trust in public health ahead of COVID vaccine approval. Independent medical experts weigh in on how the FDA plans to make that process transparent. Soon, the FDA will be responsible for green-lighting a vaccine, possibly under emergency use authorization. It comes at a time when trust in public health is essential, and some are concerned health agencies are being pressured by White House administration officials.
What we really want to make sure it doesn't happen is what happened with convalescent plasma, where an EUA was issued by the FDA, and then the leadership of the NIH called into question that EUA.
The head of the Journal of the American Medical Association and 2 other leading doctors in their field partnered on an editorial about approving a vaccine with the most transparency. It includes the FDA explaining the role of the 3 different boards and independent groups that will review vaccine candidate data, many members of which have been screened for ethics conflicts. The FDA is urged to share all vaccine data with those committees and take their advisory into consideration before granting emergency use or approval. Right now, the country is split on if they would take a vaccine.
People need to have their questions answered. Misinformation needs to be countered. Local groups, local leaders, particularly from hard-hit communities, need to be brought in and engaged for how to explain and have dialogue with people about the vaccine.
Another concern is if politically appointed health officials push a vaccine through despite FDA recommendations. Experts say it could legally happen, yes, but it's highly unlikely.
Some of the career officials of the FDA have already stood up themselves and written saying that they won't be pushed around. And I think that is a bit of a distinction from the CDC at this point.
The fact that politics has entered in this at all is tragic. The fact that science could be viewed through a political lens when it is science. You can have an opinion, but you can't have your own science.
The FDA is also expected to spell out even stricter emergency use authorization standards ahead of a vaccine approval to help build trust and transparency. The head of the FDA testified today he has enough faith in the process that he and his family would take a COVID vaccine once approved. Next in our lineup, the number of people suffering from COVID symptoms months later continues to grow, and their age may surprise you. The new work doctors are doing to figure out what's going on. Voter fraud is rare, but when it happens, it's often when someone votes twice. Newsy investigative reporter Patrick Terpstra looks into why prosecutors in Washington state declined to charge dozens of voters suspected of voting twice in 2016.
I want people to know that we take this seriously.
Washington Secretary of State Kim Wyman discovered 74 people who appeared to have voted twice in the 2016 election. That was out of more than 3 million ballots cast in a state that votes by mail. Wyman gave the evidence to county prosecutors, who she says declined to file any charges.
I was disappointed that we didn't have any of our county prosecutors actually prosecute those crimes. They are felonies in our state.
Rare as someone actually voting twice might be, we found it's even more unusual to see charges filed when it does happen. One reason is because people who vote twice don't always mean to. Most of the 74 cases of possible voter fraud in Washington state occurred in populous King County, home of Seattle. The prosecutor's office received and investigated 18 reports of double voting, finding enough to believe 10 people did in fact vote twice, but never charging anyone with a crime. King County's prosecutor declined to speak on camera, but a spokesman says all 10 double voting cases were accidental. People who had moved and voted again in their new town, or who cast a ballot in another state where they had a second home. Instead of issuing indictments, King County sent warning letters to the suspected illegal voters, telling us, "We have seen the same result from our letters as we did from the previous misdemeanor filings. They stopped their behavior." Rutgers social science professor Lorraine Maniti has found prosecutors often pass on filing charges because, as in King County, they don't want to go after people who didn't intend to vote twice.
But they might vote early, actually forget, and show up at the polls.
Or someone votes for a recently deceased spouse.
Crime is an intent crime. The crime is that you knowingly did it. So to convict somebody, you have to get to state of mind.
So law enforcement focuses on major cases of voter fraud, like this Ohio poll worker who repeatedly voted in multiple elections.
And she also voted for her sister, who has been in a coma since 2003.
Wyman is hopeful prosecutors will eventually charge some of the 74 people she identified across Washington state as voting twice.
There's a part of me that also understands that, yeah, it would be more of a deterrent if we actually prosecuted someone who voted more than once.
In Washington, D.C., I'm Patrick Terpstra reporting.
The pandemic has claimed another longtime Central Indiana business. Today is the last day of business for Moore's Pie Shop on West Elm Street in Kokomo. Moore's first opened in 1946, and the store's message on Facebook simply said, "COVID has not been nice to us." Once word got out through social media that Moore's was closing, business was brisk as longtime customers stocked up. The shop says all that's left going into their final day is pumpkin pie. Cluster Truck is going in some new directions, though. They're opening 2 kitchens in Broad Ripple and Fishers. The Indianapolis-based company operates delivery-only restaurants and has consistently grown since first opening downtown in 2016. Cluster Truck owner Chris Baggett says customers have begged for an expanded delivery zone, so they delivered. The Broad Ripple location will open on Monday, September 28th. The Fishers location will open Thursday, October 8th. This comes less than a year after Cluster Truck opened a location in Carmel.
Some rain in that video. We would like that delivered in Central Indiana, but we have a long-standing order here, and it's still going to be a little while before we get some wet weather. Looking at those clouds outside right now, some areas seeing a little more sunshine, like in the Kokomo area with 74, 71 in Bloomington, the wind very light out there, and 72 with those mostly cloudy skies in Indianapolis. Sitting comfortably here, you can see that pocket of cooler air to our south. That's because they're dealing with some rain, the remnants there of Beta, but off to the west, we actually have temperatures that are climbing into the middle 80s. So summer is not done, even though officially we're into fall now. And as we look at our temperature trend here, we go through the next couple of days here right on into the weekend. I do think we're going to see above average temperatures, and that does mean the return of some 80s. Not quite there, though, as we go throughout our Thursday hour by hour. We do start off with some cloud cover. I think we'll see a little more sunshine tomorrow, though, than what we had today, and temperatures will respond to that. As we get late morning, we're in the upper 60s. We'll get temperatures lower 70s for your lunch hour and eventually middle to upper 70s for that afternoon high. Not too far from average for this time of year. A little warmer than where we should be, actually. It's 78 in Bloomington and Indianapolis, as well as Richmond. A pretty popular number out there. We'll all be within a few degrees of each other with a south breeze at 5 to 10 miles per hour. End of the week, looking equally as nice here. I think we see even more sunshine returning to the area. Temperatures in the middle 50s to start the day. Will climb close to 80 degrees here as we head into the afternoon. And look at this. First weekend of fall, going to feel much more summer-like out there. It's kind of fitting because the last weekend of summer felt like fall, didn't it? Well, we've got 84 this coming Saturday, 83 degrees as we go into Sunday. And again, we are going to have mainly dry conditions here as we get toward the second half of the weekend and early next week. We've got some rain chances. They're not overwhelming, though, only about 20 to 30%. As we check out the 7-day planning forecast, there's the warming trend. Again, we'll be into the middle 80s, lows around 60 degrees on Saturday, 64 by Sunday morning with a high of 83. 30% chance of that late day shower or storm. We'll keep in that chance for a few showers going into Tuesday. And much cooler on Wednesday, a high of just 64 degrees. That's a trend that does look to continue here for the first week of October. October 1st through the 7th, the temperature outlook is below average. There you can see our average high by the 7th. It does drop into the upper 60s. Those overnight lows averaging in the 40s at that point. Also looks like we're going to be staying fairly dry as well. We look at the rainfall outlook for the same period here. So the first full week of October continuing to trend below average. So not a whole lot of rain in our forecast. Lindsay?
A game changer in gathering plasma to study COVID-19 treatment. That's what the American Red Cross is calling its new test. They're now checking all blood donations for coronavirus antibodies instead of just searching for recovered patients.
We can then not only inform that donor of the testing results that we've identified COVID-19 antibodies in their blood, but also use that product as convalescent plasma to help patients who are ill with COVID-19 in the hospital.
Early results from the National Institutes for Health show the plasma can make a big difference for severely sick COVID patients. And data from these new tests will help those researchers working to better understand the virus. The Red Cross says the need for whole blood donors is constant, but plasma is more unpredictable. Over the summer, plasma supplies ran low after unprecedented infections and demand in some states. Now they're asking more donors to step up to restock for another potential surge in the fall and winter.
Because we can't predict the demand, we want to ensure that we have enough inventory, because what really saves lives are the units that are on the shelf, not something that we need to collect once we realize there's a need.
The Red Cross has taken additional safety steps during the pandemic, and that includes making an appointment. You can sign up online at redcrossblood.org or by using the Blood Donor app. More than 200,000 Americans have now died from coronavirus, and even those who are surviving COVID, they're suddenly dealing with debilitating symptoms that won't go away. Chris Conti takes a closer look at what's happening.
As a guy who is typically used to running races and getting dirty, Sean Stevens was a picture of perfect health.
I've never gotten sick. I just don't get sick.
That shock came in March. First a cough, then came the fever. It was like nothing this 53-year-old had ever felt before.
I just fell off the cliff, man. I was in a fetal position most of the night that night.
As you can probably guess, it was COVID.
My lungs, if I tried to walk upstairs quicker than normal, I'd have to stop. My lungs just took forever to bounce back.
But then something happened, or rather didn't happen. Sean wasn't getting better and still ending up at the doctor's. 6 months later, this lifelong athlete now has high blood pressure.
My blood pressure, if I don't take my medicine every day, it goes up to 198 over 126 is the highest. I've never had high blood pressure.
Sean has become part of a new kind of COVID patient, the so-called long hauler, people across the country who are suffering from symptoms months after their diagnosis.
We don't know how long it's going to take them to recover, but if we do nothing, it's going to take a lot longer.
Dr. Dana McCarthy is a physician at Mount Sinai Hospital. She and other doctors are trying to figure out what's happening to COVID long haulers. Thousands of people are currently on the hospital's waiting list looking for help.
It's a very vulnerable patient population, one that didn't ask for this to happen to them, right? And now can't get their healthcare needs met.
Some of the symptoms long haulers are facing: shortness of breath, chest pain that resembles a heart attack, memory loss issues, and severe exhaustion. And most of these patients are between the ages of 20 and 40.
There's a lot of patients in this country who are suffering tremendously from this, and they're young patients.
I now feel like I have to take medicine to stay alive. Having blood pressure at my level puts me at a really high risk for stroke and heart attack. That's not the flu, man.
For people like Sean Stevens, COVID has become a diagnosis they can't escape. I'm Chris Conti reporting.
Finally in our lineup, we're seeing some of the lowest airfares we've seen in a decade as we look ahead to holiday travel. The deals may be great, but we need to look at what you need to consider before you book. As temperatures drop throughout the country, restaurant owners are rethinking their game plans. Some New York restaurants are putting out these bubbles so people can still be outside and socially distance. They're waiting on guidance on whether they can use heat lamps outside to keep people warm. You may be starting to look ahead to the holidays, and there's no doubt that air travel is already changing. Hotels and airlines are trying to win your business with never-before-seen promotions. Many are extending their rewards programs and not letting points expire this year. Even hotels are trying to get you to stay for a while by offering their own work-from-home and distance learning setups.
And so hotels are putting together packages to try to accommodate some of these travelers. We've seen things as extreme as the Four Seasons in Orlando put together a package where they set up a private schoolroom where they actually have their camp staff acting as teachers.
As far as holiday travel goes, we're seeing some of the lowest fares we've seen in a decade, according to Forbes Advisor.
Usually you're told, oh, don't travel the day before Thanksgiving, don't come back the Sunday after Thanksgiving. Even on those days, I was seeing both availability wide open, and I was seeing what I would consider to be off-peak airfares for times when people usually want to fly.
But just because prices are low doesn't mean you should necessarily jump on a deal. Only some airlines are promising to keep middle seats closed or to socially distance passengers. Other airlines may be taking full flights because there are fewer flights right now. And keep in mind that not all direct flights will be available. You may need to book a layover now that a lot of routes have been cut.
It's a scenic town lying in a peninsula surrounded by water and with Canada lying to the north of it. I'm Maya Rodriguez. Tomorrow we're taking you to a town where COVID and the closure of the U.S. and Canadian border has changed everything about life here.
Our temperature is getting a little warmer over the next few days, and that's going to include the overnights as well. Tomorrow morning, we'll start off in the middle 50s, still going to have a few clouds around, but we will quickly see the return of that sunshine. Temperatures already into the 60s at 10 a.m. We'll get those afternoon highs, upper 70s to around 80 degrees, and we will be in the 80s, feeling very much like summer here as we go through the upcoming weekend. That chance for a few showers and storms by Sunday evening. Thanks for joining us here at the news at 5:30. The news at 6 starts now.